Welcome to the House of Representatives. A well-functioning, well-funded, well-led Department of Justice is critical to the safety and the security of the American people. And the Department of Justice's employees are dedicated public servants who work diligently and often in dangerous settings to keep criminals off the streets. But unfortunately, the Department of Justice under your leadership has become a tool of political retaliation and the front door for criminals seeking to curry favors and pardons. As I told Director Patel last month, pressure from the White House to investigate the president's opponents or to quash investigations of his allies threaten the department's credibility and the very foundations and the foundation on which this nation stands, and that is the rule of law. The Attorney General must shield the rule of law from political pressure, not act as an instrument for implementing the president's political hit list. Attorney General Bondi, the Department of Justice is not the president's personal law firm. Loyalty or disloyalty toward the president or even the president's agenda is not a valid measure of the performance of your employees nor of the appropriateness of a particular criminal investigation. President Trump is more focused on revenge, retaliation, and retribution rather than lowering high price for everyday essentials, and the American people are bearing those costs. The American people expected President Trump to address the high cost of living, but the president is not laser focused on the cost of living crisis. He is actually making it worse. Instead, he put billionaires like Elon Musk in charge of our government, and they are attacking civil servants who are not loyal to him, but to the Constitution and to the rule of law, and they are stealing programs, the funding for the programs that keep America's communities safe. This administration is deliberately undermining agencies that protect the American people. Over $4.5 billion in the Department of Justice grant, those funds, including COPS grants, the Office of Violence Against Women grants, that's been unlawfully frozen, stolen from the communities that are counting on this funding to improve their own law enforcement capabilities. This funding supports reentry initiatives, violence prevention. It helps prevent hate crimes, provides services for crime victims, and supports underserved communities. Stealing this funding makes the American people less safe, more likely to become victims of crime. Freezing this money is an illegal impoundment. There is no lawful authority to unilaterally impound, or in my words, steals. You can continue to say there is inherent authority. You can say it over and over and over again, but it is not true. And we're going to correct it over and over and over again. And how many times can the courts and the Government Accountability Office tell you so? Your department is responsible for upholding the law. You must unfreeze grant money appropriated by the Congress or be in violation of the law. Moving to the next fiscal year, I'm eager to learn about how the Department of Justice will continue to fulfill its mission with a proposed budget that significantly cuts our nation's law enforcement agencies, key offices, and grant programs. The president's proposed budget would impair and defund the core law enforcement agencies that keep our communities safe. In essence, you are defunding law enforcement. It slashes funding for the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, limiting federal efforts to help our state and local enforcement combat gun violence, drug trafficking, and organized crime. The budget also targets DOJ's foundational legal divisions, cutting funding for civil rights enforcement, environmental protection, and even, yes, national security. It takes an axe to grant programs and other programs that support domestic violence survivors and local police departments. It dismantles DOJ's tax division, which will only make it easier for prominent tax cheats to avoid prosecution, further increasing the burden on honest taxpayers who pay what they owe. They pay what they owe. Our largest corporations do not. And why on earth does your budget slash the Department of Justice's Office of the Inspector General by 30%? Does this administration want to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse or not? Our government's Inspector General are absolutely critical, nonpartisan offices that help Congress and the American people eliminate and prevent that prevent fraud and corruption. This administration has directly undermined and even removed over a dozen of these offices across our government. Waste, fraud, and abuse are not the targets of President Trump's White House. They are the primary objectives. This budget does not put the safety and security of the American people first. It puts white-collar criminals, drug traffickers, and violent offenders first, while eviscerating your department's ability to stop them. The Department of Justice exists to uphold the rule of law. The American people deserve assurance that everyone will be treated equally under the law. Instead, this administration breaks the law with reckless abandon. President Trump, like every other American, must follow the law. Russ Vought must follow the law. Secretaries Noem and Kennedy and McMahon must follow the law. And we must understand why your department is complicit in law-breaking from the highest office. I yield back.
All right, let's talk about what just happened in that hearing, because this wasn't just another routine exchange in Congress. What you saw from Congresswoman Rosa Delauro was a full-on indictment of how the Department of Justice is being run right now under Pam Bondi. And more importantly, what that means for everyday people who don't have lobbyists, billionaires, or political connections backing them up. And this is where we need to slow down and really sit with what just happened in that room, because this wasn't just a sharp speech or a tough line of questioning. This was a warning. A very deliberate, very serious warning about how fragile the rule of law actually is when the people in power start treating it like a suggestion instead of an obligation. What Rosa Delauro laid out is a picture of a Justice Department that is being bent, not subtly, but openly, toward political ends. And once that line is crossed, it's incredibly hard to uncross it. Because when prosecutors, investigators, and civil servants start wondering whether doing their job will get them punished for being disloyal, justice stops being blind. It starts checking party registration. It starts checking who you voted for. And that is how democracies decay from the inside out. And here's the part that should worry everyone, no matter where you fall politically. Once you accept that the Department of Justice can be used as a weapon by your guy, you've already accepted that it can be used against you when power changes hands. There is no off switch for politicized justice. There's no moment where it suddenly becomes fair again just because the target shifts. History shows us that once institutions are hollowed out, everyone eventually pays the price. Delauro also made something very clear that often gets lost in political shouting matches. This isn't abstract. This isn't just about hearings, budgets, or legal theories. When billions of dollars meant for violence prevention, reentry programs, hate crime prevention, and victim services are frozen or stripped away, real people suffer. Communities become less safe. Survivors lose support. Local law enforcement loses tools they rely on. And the same politicians who claim to care about law and order are the ones quietly pulling the plug on the programs that actually deliver it. And the irony here is staggering. While the administration rails against so-called defunding, it is actively proposing a budget that guts the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, civil rights enforcement, environmental protection, and national security divisions. That's not strength. That's sabotage. You cannot claim to be tough on crime while kneecapping the very agencies tasked with fighting it. You cannot claim to support police while stealing resources from the communities they serve. What makes this moment even more dangerous is how normalized it's becoming. Freezing congressionally approved funds, ignoring court rulings, repeating false claims of inherent authority until people get tired of pushing back. This is how accountability erodes, not all at once, but through exhaustion, through repetition, through the hope that people will stop paying attention. That's why speeches like this matter, not because they magically fix the problem, but because they draw a line in the sand. They put names, facts, and accusations into the public record. They force the question that too many people would rather avoid. Are we a country governed by laws or by loyalty? And make no mistake, the Constitution does not enforce itself. Courts do not enforce themselves. Congress's power of the purse does not enforce itself. These systems only work if people inside them are willing to say no, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs them politically, even when it puts a target on their back. Rosa Delauro didn't just challenge Pam Bondi. She challenged the idea that we should accept any of this as normal. She challenged the slow drift toward a system where justice is transactional, where power shields allies and punishes enemies, and where public institutions exist to serve one man's grievances instead of the public good. And the uncomfortable truth is this: if this continues unchecked, the damage won't show up all at once. It will show up gradually, quietly, in smaller protections, fewer safeguards, and weaker institutions. By the time people realize what's been lost, rebuilding it will be far harder than defending it now. So this isn't a partisan alarm bell. It's a civic one. Whether you're left, right, or somewhere in between, you should want a Department of Justice that follows the law, not the president's mood. You should want communities funded and protected, not punished for political reasons. And you should want public servants who are loyal to the Constitution, not afraid of retaliation for doing their jobs. If this is the kind of accountability you want to see more of, make sure you're paying attention, because silence is exactly what allows this kind of power abuse to grow. If this breakdown added clarity beyond the headlines, hit like, subscribe for more real, unfiltered political commentary, and leave a comment with your take on this moment. And above all, share this video, because the rule of law only survives if people are watching and refusing to look away.